This is stuff you like, and if you're going to change things for an adaptation of some kind of source material, you should at least try to change them in a way that is an improvement. I know this sounds really obvious, but you would be surprised. Jonathan Frakes' 2004 live-action Thunderbirds was, as we have previously discussed, a bit of a disappointment, both to fans of the original series and to moviegoers generally. It took the focus off the actual rescues and machines and onto a convoluted plot. The Tracy brothers were shunted off to one side so we could focus on the teenage main characters. The script was a bit naff, and nobody bar Penny and Parker seemed to be having any fun. Thunderbirds Are Go is a different kettle of fish. Tofu fish. The plots may not be complicated, the jokes may be punny, but they know how to make a show that really properly updates Thunderbirds, while retaining the things which made it so special. Okay, I guess I could ask for better internal consistency when dealing with the overarching themes of the series, but as someone said to me not so very long ago, well, it's not Avatar, is it? There were a lot of changes made from the original series. Some big ones, like Jeff being missing and the length of the episodes, and some small ones. Like the designs of most of the Thunderbirds are still pretty recognizable, with the possible exception of 5. But we are going to focus on Kayo Kyrano and the nature of the episodes and the missions. Someday I'm going to make a whole episode about EOS and maybe also one about Gordon and Penny and how their ship name came to be Pen and Ink and how that's my favourite ship name ever, but today is not that day. You're all gonna watch it when I do though, because it's gonna be great. Let's talk about Tintin Kyrano. She is the daughter of Jeff Tracy's manservant, just call me Kyrano. She's Malaysian. Kyrano is the Hood's half-brother, making Tintin the Hood's niece. And she and Alan have a thing. Sort of. She's a pilot, she has a background in engineering and maths, and she works variously as Jeff's secretary, Brains' lab assistant, Penny's espionage assistant, and auxiliary crew on Thunderbird 3 for radio beam operation. Which is to say, she doesn't have a terribly defined role as such, she's kind of all over the place. Now, due to copyright issues stemming from that other Tintin, who'd also had a recent CG reboot, when the tag team, you see what I did there, started their series development, they basically redesigned the character from the ground up. I mean, for a start, they renamed her Tanusha Kayo Kyrano. Also, neither of her parents are ever mentioned. Does the Hood have a brother or a sister? We don't know, but she is still the Hood's niece. Don't know if she's Malaysian. And she and Alan sort of have there's a thing, but it's not quite the same thing. Since they've chosen to age down most of the cast, but not Tanusha/Kayo/formerly Tintin, it would have been kinda weird if they'd kept that. So instead, Alan has an adorable crush on his surrogate big sister, and we don't really mention it very much, which is probably for the best. Oh, and she is still a pilot. The very biggest differences, though, are pretty indicative of the differing ways that Thunderbirds the original series and Thunderbirds Are Go treat their female protagonists and, honestly, their female characters more generally. Thunderbirds is very man-heavy, especially if there are engineers or astronauts involved, it's dude puppets all the way. But Thunderbirds Are Go is of the opinion that it's 2060, it's a modern world, and so, you know, having an equal number of men and women might be a good idea. This also might be because they want to get maximum use out of their limited number of character models, but, you know, just go with it. The original Thunderbirds was made in the 60s, which means that even with Sylvia Anderson's efforts to introduce Penelope and Tintin to get more female faces on the screen, there was still a lot of casual sexism that just would not fly today. In City of Fire, a crazy lady driver manages to crash her car in an underground car park, and because cars are made of explodium, everything falls down. And international rescue have to go save a mum and dad and their little boy. Yes, the driver was female. Ha 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 ha. It's funny because women be crazy, and also statistically safer drivers than men. Thunderbirds Are Go's Lady Penelope does act like a brainless socialite on occasion, including having the requisite small dog, but we're supposed to know that that's just an act. But anybody condescending to her or Kayo does tend to get some small amount of plot-related comeuppance at least. More generally, the women who need rescued in Thunderbirds Are Go tend to be as active and often less stupid and impulsive than their male counterparts, and Kayo is no exception. But it did seem for a moment during the first season that she was going to suffer a similar fate to her predecessor, which is to say, they didn't really seem to know what to do with her. After the initial episode, she was shunted off to the side, just a little. She played auxiliary astronaut with Alan in that episode where they were going to crash into the sun. Oh hey, I see what you did there. But there were a few occasions of, oh, Kayo's off testing Thunderbird Shadow. That said, we did at least build up a picture of her as someone more likely to defy Scott's orders than any of the Tracy brothers are. And as it turns out, they did know what they were going to do with her, and boy, it was a doozy. Kayo has two big roles, head of security and auxiliary crew, which is to say, person who figures out what the baddies are doing and goes and stops them, and spare pair of hands. And this clarification of role, I mean, you never see Kayo taking notes or doing science, really helps to make her an interesting character to watch. But it also meant a smaller or non-existent role in a lot of episodes of Thunderbirds Are Go because of the nature of those episodes. Which is to say that first, they're shorter because they're only 20 minutes long each, and second, the show as a whole is more optimistic about humanity. The change to 20-minute episodes was obviously a change which needed to be made because of the nature of modern children's programming, but I think it works pretty well. They've still got their traditional handmade miniature sets, but now they have CGI Thunderbirds and characters, and both the timing and the CGI contribute to the faster pace, because the characters can now do stuff instead of flipping switches while their eyes roll wildly. And as for that second point, well, it's fairer to say it's sort of more optimistic. Perhaps it would be better to say that their focus is a little bit different. Thunderbirds was made in the 1960s, which is to say, right around the time of the space race and the Cold War and mutually assured destruction. And because of this, military-related missions or rescues were fairly common. Many of the episodes are obviously things like fires, building collapses, space missions going wrong, but there are a fair few which involve the Army, or the Navy, or the Air Force, or mysterious military-style baddies. There are also more guns in the original. Light-up guns. Thunderbirds Are Go, however, has in its backstory the straightforwardly named global conflict of 2040, which leaves things like orbital space mines and lots of junk in low Earth orbit. The global conflict seems to be the reason for the global defense force, but the world of 2060 all in all is pretty peaceful. There aren't many world-ending baddies around. Most of the baddies are either pretty small time or not really featured in the episode. For example, bad people in their mining machine cause a dad and his son, hey look, not everybody white, to need rescuing. And other things that go wrong are things like solar collectors or trains. And if someone is, say, trying to blow us all to Kingdom Come with nukes, then it's probably the Hood. And in this setting, Kayo Kyrano fits neatly, but specifically. She is a main character, but because you mainly need her as head of security when the Hood is doing something shady, and you don't want to overuse your villain, it kind of makes sense that she gets less screen time than, say, Scott, or even Penelope, who can be relied upon to do non-rescue mission related stuff. But overall, I think they do take good advantage of Kayo's more clearly defined role as surrogate Tracy sister, head of security, and niece of the Hood. I just wish it was easier to get a gosh darn action figure, because seriously, who wouldn't want Thunderbird Shadow? Look at it! Anyway, the reason that the show works so well is that they know the core of what people really want from Thunderbirds. Daring rescues, heroism, fantastical machines, beautiful sets, exciting music with trumpets. And they know what needs updating. There's no smoking, no tapes, no pointless sexism. More than 2 non-white characters exist. There are more holograms, more jetpacks, and more space skateboarding. Ugh. Really pretty good, you guys. I mean, no, it's not Avatar good, and it may never get there, but it's still something I actually enjoy watching. And there are episodes like EOS or Tunnels of Time that I would happily watch multiple times, and I would still find them interesting. And that's just really nice. But you know, even after more than 50 years and 3 iterations at least, I still have no idea what FAB means. If you have any suggestions, put them in the comments, but there's quite a long banned words list, so make sure to keep them clean. And if you'd like to support the show, then you can do so on Patreon by clicking on the link to my right. Thanks for watching!